Welcome to the session on Ind AS with Accountsman. As promised you in the previous video, in this video we will be discussing financial statements. Financial statements in our discussion is with regard to Ind AS. So, when we talk about financial statements, we are talking about financial statements of company. Section 129 of Companies Act 2013 talks about financial statements. Section 129, if you people have read in law, says that the financial statement should be prepared in accordance with Schedule 3 of the Act. Schedule 3 basically gives us three distinct parts. The first part is Division 1, the second part is Division 2, and the third part is Division 3. So, Schedule 3 basically gives us three divisions. Which division are we talking about right now? I will tell you what does each division talk about, then you tell me which division is our current matter of discussion. Division 1 talks about non-Ind AS financial statements, that is with regard to accounting standards. So, Division 1 talks about financial statements under the accounting standard era, or for those companies which are covered under accounting standards. Division 2 talks about Ind AS financial statements. So, Division 2 talks about financial statements with regard to those companies who are covered under Ind AS. Division 3 talks about financial statements of NBFCs, that is non-banking financial corporations. So, that is not our current matter of discussion, as well as accounting standards is also not. So, our current area of discussion is basically Division 2, which talks about Ind AS financial statements. So, what are regarded as financial statements as per Ind AS? According to Ind AS, the financial statements will include balance sheet, statement of profit and loss. When we say statement of profit and loss, this will definitely include other comprehensive income also. So, under Ind AS, whenever I use the word statement of profit or loss, you always presume it statement of profit or loss along with other comprehensive income, and we cannot write everything in detail in balance sheet, isn't it? So, we will definitely prepare notes to accounts, and it will also include statement showing changes in equity, and lastly we will also have cash flow statement. So, these are the items that are covered under the definition of financial statements under Ind AS Division 2 Schedule 3 and Section 129 of Companies Act 2013. So, what and all? Number 1 balance sheet, number 2 statement of profit or loss including other comprehensive income, then we have notes to accounts, after that statement showing changes in equity, and finally cash flow statement. So, all this is under Ind AS. Was it same under IFRS? This is a separate discussion altogether. So, was it same under IFRS? Come on, let us see. Under IFRS, it was firstly not called as balance sheet. It was called as statement of financial position. That name is changed now. So, statement of financial position is carve out, balance sheet name is carve in. So, that's something that's added into our Ind AS, which was previously not there in IFRS. So, after that, statement of profit or loss under Ind AS will include other comprehensive income. However, under IFRS, they have statement of financial performance, that is basically statement of profit or loss, and separately they have a statement called as statement of comprehensive income. So, under IFRS, they prepared two distinct statements, one normal profit or loss, second one is statement of comprehensive income. However, under our Ind AS, both statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income togetherly is covered under the context of statement of profit and loss. Again, there is a distinction in the name there. Under Ind AS we call it profit and loss, under IFRS it's called as profit or loss. And our old accounting standard, what and all we used to prepare? We used to prepare balance sheet, same thing. We used to prepare statement of profit and loss, but however, this statement of profit and loss will not include other comprehensive income. So, there was no context of other comprehensive income whenever we made financial statements according to accounting standards. Now you might be wondering, sir, what is this word OCI, other comprehensive income, which you are using repetitively? I'll come back to it little later after we discuss balance sheet and the basic P&L account. So we'll come in the order. Everything is in line. You just have to relax, sit back, and then understand it one after the other. And same, notes to accounts and rest of the items were same. Notes to accounts was there, statement showing changes in equity was there, and cash flow statement was also there in our accounting standard. So this is with regard to financial statements as per Ind AS 1, that is presentation of financial statements. So now let us go and then start discussing each of our items in detail. Let's start discussing balance sheet now. So the first point of discussion is balance sheet. So we are now going to discuss balance sheet. Come on. So this is the format of balance sheet, that's basically one. So as we understand, balance sheet will have two variants. One is equity and liabilities, and the second one is assets. So when we talk about equity and liabilities along with assets, right now I've told you what exactly does this word equity and liabilities include. So equity will include equity share capital and other equity. Liabilities are majorly classified as non-current liabilities and current liabilities. Non-current liabilities further have financial liability, provisions, deferred tax liability, other non-current liability, and current liability has financial liability, other current liability, provisions, and current tax liability. So this is the format. I will not waste time on asking you to mug up the format. Instead, I will focus on couple of important items. So the first important point that you need to note here is, previously under accounting standards, we used to tell equity share capital and preference share capital as equity. Yeah. So this was under accounting standards. Right now when we go to Ind AS, this is changing. We will call only equity share capital as equity. So under Ind AS, equity share capital is equity. Preference share capital is not equity. Yeah. What is preference share capital? Preference share capital is financial liability. You get that? It comes here. So preference share capital basically comes to financial liability and it will not be shown under equity. The reason is pretty simple. Now under Companies Act 2013, it is pretty clear that we cannot issue preference shares which are redeemable at the end of the life of the business. We should redeem it within a period of 20 years or plus 10 years. So every preference share issued is redeemable in nature. Point number one. Second point is, with regard to preference shares, the dividend rate is also fixed. So when the dividend rate is fixed and it is supposed to be redeemed before the business is wound up, how can you call it capital? It is termed as liability. So meaning there is no difference between preference share capital and debentures. Preference share capital and debentures both are same in our Ind AS era. However, under accounting standard era, preference share was part of capital and debentures was a long-term debt. Here preference share capital as well as debentures both are long-term debts only. So what would be the impact of this on our financial statements with regard to statement of profit or loss? Previously, whenever we gave dividend on preference shares, we basically wrote it in reserves and surplus as deduction because it was appropriation of income. However, under the new era, preference share capital is regarded as liability. So dividend paid on preference share capital is something like interest paid on debentures. So it is part of the expense in statement of profit or loss. So that's the new thing. And here the very important point that I want to draw your attention towards is, how do we distinguish an item as non-current liability and current liability? I'll answer it together after we discuss the assets also. So how do we distinguish a specific item as non-current and current? See, financial liability can be current as well as non-current. So when do we call it current and when do we call it non-current will be something that we need to wait to look into. Yeah, other items we'll discuss in detail. Provisions we'll discuss it as part of separate Ind AS. Deferred tax also separate Ind AS. You get that? Come on, let's go to the next one. So now we're done with the equity and liability part. Let us now discuss the asset as to what exactly do you mean by assets. So assets in the balance sheet, see I told you balance sheet will have equity and liability and assets. So we are right now discussing what exactly do you mean by this word assets. Assets are basically categorized into two. One is non-current, other one is current. So under non-current assets it's called as PPE. The old name was fixed assets. Yeah. So right now the name is different. The terminology has been changed. This is something that's new that's there in IFRS which is implemented. So that is PPE. Ind AS 16 when we start we'll understand it in detail. So PPE, and if there is any other asset which is still in construction, not yet complete, it will become capital work in progress, and certain things will be written as investment property. What is investment property? We'll discuss it later when we start discussing Ind AS 41. Then goodwill is to be written as a separate line item with regard to intangible assets. Other intangible assets, intangible assets other than goodwill, like know-how, patent, trademark, copyright, license, that will be written here. Then we need to write intangible assets which are under construction. This is in similar lines with our capital WIP. So this and this are similar in nature. If a tangible assets is in construction, it will be written as capital WIP. If there is an intangible asset under construction, it will be written as intangible asset under development. Yeah. Then biological assets. This will not include bearer plants. Yeah. Don't worry about this. We'll discuss this in detail when I take up PPE and Ind AS 41 agriculture. Yeah. So biological asset will not include bearer plant in this particular context, and financial assets and other non-current assets. So this is the bifurcation of non-current assets. And when you go to current assets, we'll have inventory, financial assets, current tax assets, and other current assets. So you might be wondering, few items which you read in Schedule 3 format as per accounting standards might have been gone missing. They're all hidden in here. If your question is about trade receivables, investments, cash and cash equivalent, bank overdraft, everything is part of our financial assets. So cash and cash equivalent, bank, trade receivables, everything will be written in financial assets. So this is with regard to the balance sheet format given under Division 2 of Schedule 3 Section 129 of Companies Act 2013. So I'll show you the format one, so that if you want you can pause it and then copy. So this is the equity and liability side, and this is the asset side. Now I'll get into discussion with regard to when do we call an item as current and non-current. So when do we call an item as current and non-current? Yeah. So the basis for this discussion is basically the accounting cycle, or we can call it operating cycle to be very correct. Operating cycle. So if an item if it doesn't fit into operating cycle, then it will be non-current item. If that particular item fits into operating cycle, then it will be considered as a current item. Yeah. So when do we call an item as non-current item? If it basically doesn't fit into the operating cycle, it is considered as a non-current item. If it fits into the operating cycle, it is called as current item. Now the discussion is with regard to what exactly do we mean by operating cycle. Operating cycle starts with procurement of raw material and it ends with collection from debtor. So from the time I purchase my raw material, convert it to work in progress, convert that work in progress to finished goods, sell that finished goods to my customer and collect the money from my customer. So entire time that is between taking the raw material to collecting the money from the debtor is called as operating cycle. This operating cycle need not be 12 months. If the time I buy my raw material to collecting the money from debtors basically goes to 15 months. So then 15 months is my operating cycle. It might be like converting raw material to finished goods might take 6 months, and selling that goods will take 6 months, and collecting the money from my debtor will take 3 months. So 6 months plus 6 months plus 3 months, that basically comes to 15 months. So 15 months is my operating cycle. Any item whose benefit will be exhausted within 15 months, that is operating cycle, is current item. If not, no. Liability also, if it is due to be paid within this 15 months, it is current. If not, no. If operating cycle is not clear, if operating cycle is not clear, then we'll go for 12 months policy. So we basically go with what? Operating cycle. If an item is not clear, operating cycle is not clear, then we basically go with 12 months. If the benefit will get exhausted within 12 months, it is current. If the benefit will not get exhausted in 12 months, it becomes non-current. You get that? So this is only with regard to items when operating cycle is not clear for that. And if an item is trade item, it's definitely correct. Or next important point, if trade item, then current. If it is not a trade item, then it is not a current item. So this is with regard to current, non-current. However, there is a frequently asked question and on which ICA has also given specific notes. So we'll cover that specific point. So this is an important point that we need to note now. So this happens with respect to this particular case. So assume that there is a bank and there is a business, and business has borrowed money from the bank, and this money whatever is bought is long term loan. With respect to this particular long term loan, it is given on certain conditions, yeah, and you fail to fulfill this condition. So this scenario is called as breach of contract. So when you fail to fulfill the conditions of the contract, then what would happen? Bank will ask you to repay the money instantly. When the bank asks you to pay the money instantly, will it be called as current liability or a non-current liability? First important point is, whenever this particular thing was long-term loan, it was a non-current liability. You get that? Now breach of contract has led to what? Breach of contract has led to bank will ask for immediate money. Bank asks for money immediately. Then what would it be? Is it current or non-current is a discussion. Now I will tell you the comparison of IFRS also here. IFRS in this case says that it is no more a non-current liability because the bank has asked us to pay. It is a current liability, but that's not it works in our country. We have seen, right? Whenever the bank asks for money, people can file the suit, take it to the appellate tribunal, take it to the high court, take it to Supreme Court, in fact leave the country and say that I will not pay the interest and I will pay only principal. I am not referring to any person, I am not responsible for your imaginations. Come on. So under Ind AS, what would happen is, under Ind AS it says that whenever you are conflicting with the government saying that you need not pay such money, you will make it good, whenever you are doing so, it will not be considered as non-current. So it will not be considered as current. You can still call it non-current. So whenever breach is made good or breach can be made good, or the bank waives off the breach and then says that you pay it long term, we will still be calling it as what? Non-current only. So when will we call it current? Current liability only if bank asks for immediate settlement. Only if bank asks for immediate settlement. Imagine the bank has sent us the notice. Will that be considered as a current liability? No. We still have an appeal to make. If we think the breach will be made good, it will still not be considered as a current liability. So usually under Ind AS, this particular liability for breach of contract will be regarded as non-current liability only, except for in the case where that particular breach cannot be made good, we appeal to the court and court also says no, only then it will be considered as a current liability. So mere breach of contract and notice by bank will not make a non-current liability a current liability. It will remain as what? It will remain as a non-current liability only. This is an important point that we need to note. Yes, I hope you understood till here. Come on, let us go little ahead to discuss about our format of P&L. So I told you here that our discussion will be on balance sheet. We are done with balance sheet. Now we are heading towards statement of profit or loss. Come on. So this is our statement of profit or loss. Sorry, statement of profit and loss. Yeah, statement of profit and loss will have two parts. This is part A and we have part B. Part A is basically revenue from operations and other income, same from schedule 3, no difference. Part B will have consumption of raw material, purchase of stock in trade, changes in inventory. Changes in inventory is always opening minus closing. Yeah, not closing minus opening. Done. Then employee benefit expenses, finance charges, depreciation and amortization expenses and other expenses. Entire thing is same as schedule 3, no difference. When we do all this, we will get what? Profit before tax. From this profit before tax, we deduct tax. When we deduct tax, we will get profit after tax. You get that? This is where our schedule 3 statement of profit or loss used to end. Whereas under the Ind AS, what we do is, to this profit after tax, we add other comprehensive income. If we add other comprehensive income, we will arrive at total comprehensive income. So note the point here, till here it is the same old schedule 3 format. Yeah, no difference till here. So this is where new Ind AS things comes into picture. What comes into picture? The first and foremost thing is, to our profit after tax we add other comprehensive income. Once we add other comprehensive income to profit after tax, we will arrive at total comprehensive income. So now we need to discuss what exactly do we mean by other comprehensive income. and why do we take it into consideration. You get that? So come on, let us get started into our discussion regarding other comprehensive income. So other comprehensive income. What exactly do we mean by this term other comprehensive income? So we need to ask those normal questions: what, when, why, how, and we'll definitely know what is other comprehensive income. So the first question is what? What is other comprehensive income? So if the question is what is other comprehensive income, the answer is it is income or expense. What sort of incomes or expenses? Incomes or expenses should go to P&L account, right? So these are those incomes or expenses which will not be recognized in P&L. So incomes and expenses which will not be recognized in P&L, or not, okay, not is already there, so I'll write not allowed. This into marks means not allowed to be recognized as per other Ind AS. So if there is any Ind AS which specifically says that this income or this expenses cannot be taken to statement of profit or loss, then what will it become? It will become other comprehensive income. Now you might be wondering, sir, who gave this definition? Are you quoting this? Definitely not me. This is as per Ind AS 1. If you read the bare text of Ind AS 1, you will understand other comprehensive income refers to those incomes or expenditure which cannot be recognized in P&L account or which are not allowed to be recognized in P&L account as per other Ind AS. So this is the answer to the question what. So the next question that we all have is why. You get that? So next question that we all have is why. Yeah, if the question is why, the answer is it is notional gain. Yeah, outside PL. It's a notional gain, so it cannot be taken to P&L account. Then, sir, why again? Because if it is a notional gain, according to conservatism, we should not be recording that comprehensive income because it is notional. Prudence or conservatism says it, isn't it? But we still record it. Why do we record it? It is to, this is a barometer. What do you say? It's a barometer, basically an instrument which will help us understand the future pitfalls, future fallbacks, or future wind, or to say slides, or to say future barometer. It's an instrument which will tell us about the future threats and windfalls. Yeah. So why? It's a notional gain outside P&L account, and the barometer, it's a barometer to measure the future threats and windfalls that will happen because of the notional items that's going to be there. The next question is, this is all fine, but how are we going to treat this when it is notional? Few of these items will get transferred to P&L account, few of this won't get transferred to P&L account. What is it? Few get classified to P&L over a period of time, few don't get classified to P&L. Sir, what exactly do you mean by this? I told you that this is notional gain, so it cannot go to P&L. So we'll write it in other comprehensive income. Over a period of time, we might transfer this from other comprehensive income to P&L. So it will go from OCI to PL. Whereas here it doesn't get transferred, it will remain in other comprehensive income. So what is over, why is over, how is over? Then the next question that you all will have is when. So when will it get transferred, or when will it not get transferred? Yeah. So I'll tell you, classification of other comprehensive income to P&L. Yeah. So there are two scenarios here. One is the scenario where such reclassification is allowed, then a scenario where such reclassification is not allowed. So here classification is allowed, here the classification is not allowed. You get that? So allowed in the sense what? Here it will go from OCI to P&L. Not allowed means what? Here it will remain as OCI only. So no transfer to P&L. It will remain as OCI only. So it will not get transferred to P&L. So what are the items? First one is forex difference. If there is any forex difference in foreign operations, it will get classified to P&L account when it is no more notional. If there is gain or loss in joint venture or associates, again it will get transferred to P&L account over the period of time. If there is any change in revaluation of PP, we will discuss this when we start with Ind AS 16. So then when it is there, it will remain there. It will not get transferred to P&L account ever. Then if there is any remeasurement of defined benefit plan, this is with regard to employee benefits. Yeah, it will remain as an other comprehensive income only when there is change in the value of the planned assets. You get that? This is little different from our accounting standards. We'll discuss it when we take up employee benefits. So at this particular stage, it will remain as OCI and never go to P&L account. And the last one is equity instruments. Yeah, equity instruments which are measured. This is basically not held for sale. So if it is an equity instrument not held for sale, then it can be measured under two techniques. Yeah, the first one is this FVTCOI, fair value through other comprehensive income. There is one more method called as fair value through P&L. If it is fair value through P&L, it will not come to OCI. So whenever you measure a equity instrument, there are two options. One is through other comprehensive income. Second one is through P&L account. If it is done through P&L, it will not be other comprehensive income. If it is done through other comprehensive income, it will come to other comprehensive income and it will not be reclassified to our P&L account. So this is the example for those cases where it is not allowed, and also for those cases where it is allowed to be reclassified to P&L account. So this is our discussion with regard to statement of profit or loss and statement of balance sheet and everything. Another important last point that we need to note with respect to our OCI is OCI is not included in computation of OCI is not considered for EPS. OCI not considered for earnings per share computation. I'll tell you what exactly do I mean by this. Let us go to our P&L account here. In P&L, I wrote profit after tax, I wrote other comprehensive income and total comprehensive income. If I want to compute earnings per share here, that earnings per share is usually computed by earnings available to equity shareholders divided by number of equity shares. Here, the earnings available to equity shareholders is profit after tax and not total comprehensive income. So basically what do we do? On this we compute EPS. EPS is computed on profit after tax and not on total comprehensive income. So this is with regard to our discussion on the entire financial statements with regard to Ind AS 1. I'll attach a PDF copy of this in the description so that you can download if you want to copy it. And this is our today's discussion on Ind AS with Accountsman. See you all in the next session with a different Ind AS. Thanks for watching.